Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon. And I hope it's not good middle of the night for you. But hello. If some of you are joining us who were here yesterday, I really want to stress that this is the exact same material as yesterday. Oh, hey, Linda. There's absolutely no obligation to come to both. Obviously, if you want to, we're delighted to have you back, but don't feel like you've got to listen to me like say the exact same things and make the exact same jokes to make this worthwhile. Oh, good afternoon, my lovely. So, we're going to be doing, and for those of you who've been with us before, this is part of the free web development bootcamp run over at classcentral.com. Um, and we're following along with the free code camp curriculum. It's a lot of links sort of back to back. And let's take a look at what we're going to get started with now. So, we've done so much. It's ridiculous. We haven't done all of HTML, have we? We've done a bunch of HTML and we've done a bunch of CSS. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be putting those together, and we're going to be putting those together in ways that I find a little bit confusing. So we're going to be doing a lot of positioning stuff today, and I find the positioning stuff really weird. So are y'all ready to get weird? Yeah, let's get weird. So let's make this a little bit bigger, eh? Ooh, oh, jumps just a bit. We're starting from the applied visual design. So we're going to start from the very first one. Yeah. And the first thing we're going to take a look at here is we're going to look at how to use the text align property. And we've already learned that properties are like keywords. They're like tricks that your CSS puppy already knows how to do. So when you use a property, that's a command or maybe a polite request that CSS already understands. So we're going to use the text align properties, the text align command, or the text align request. Oh, Kai is asking such a good question about last week. Do we need to know enough CSS to be able to make the whole penguin by ourselves or just edit? Just the editing is just fine. If you wanted to play around and be like, whoa, how did they make that penguin? You could probably do something similar with a little bit of copying and pasting, but you don't have to. Yeah, just to be able to edit it, just to be able to mess with it, feels good enough to me. Yeah. That penguin's intimidating, right? There's a bunch of things going on that we didn't explicitly study. So it feels really big. It feels really scary. But as long as you can mess with that penguin and make its day a little bit weird, that's all I'm really looking for. Yeah. I hope that's reassuring. Good morning, or hello, Fabio. I don't know what time it is for you. So, properties. Yeah. Properties are command words that your CSS already knows. So let's learn about the text align property. Yeah. And I'm not going to say, oh, well, the other class. But yesterday we got through this real fast. So we're just going to hustle along, ask any weird questions you've got. There's no question that's silly. But there's a good chance we'll be done with a little bit of free time. Yeah. And it's not that we're going to finish early because this is easy. I think a lot of this is really hard. But because these lessons, even there's 52 of them, there's so many, but they're little bitty lessons, just a little thing here and there. So it'll feel like we're hustling right through them. So let's look at the different ways we can use this text align property or this text align command if CSS is our puppy. Text align justify says, hey, I want you to take all of the lines of this text and I want you to stretch them out so that they meet the right and left margins, except for the last line. Like the last line, I respect that it might look weird for that one to be stretched. Text align center, da-dum, centers the text. Text align right aligns the text to the right. Text align left aligns the text to the left. And this is very stressful for me because I'm sort of reverse. When I say right, I've got to point left. And I'm definitely going to get that wrong one day. Yell at me when I get that wrong. So we're going to align the H4 tags text, which says Google, to the center. We got that. And then we're going to justify the paragraph tag. So we're going to center this using the text align property. We can do that. And then we're going to justify this. And they've helpfully given us a couple of selectors right here ready to go. So I think what we can do is we can say text align, because that's what we've just learned. And here I think it's a center. As soon as we say, hey, or align this to the center, CSS is like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to go ahead and center this. Everything's chill. And I think in the very same sense, it said to go ahead and justify this. So text align again, and then justify. And we see, whoop, it goes ahead and stretches those right out. And it looks a little weird. I think if I was doing this in real life, I might not justify this. But it could, you know what, it could look a little weird because of how whoop, could look a little weird because of how I've got my window done. And look at that, when I stretched my window out, it kept the justified and it kept the center. And that's really what responsive web design is about, is to say, hey, even if you change your window or even if you're on a phone, I want this text to be justified or stretch out, or I want this text to say centered. Isn't this cool? Everything's so chill. So I'm gently confident that if we say run all tests, we're 2% complete. Let's just keep hustling and slow me down if there's ever anything we want to look at more. When I say, oh gosh, let's keep going, I don't mean that, oh, we need to run through this sort of way. So we're going to adjust the width of an element using the width property. This feels a lot like what we did with our image, that image of that ginger kitten back when we were learning CSS. We can specify the width of an element using the width property. All right, yeah. And those can be in relative length units like M, or absolute units such as pix, or a percentage of its parent element. Isn't that rad? So we've already learned about what that would look like with an image, and here's an example of that as an image again. But we don't have any images here. What do y'all want me to do here? Oh, so they're saying this whole card is an element, and I think that's probably a parent element, isn't it? That maybe this H4 would be a child. What are the other children in this full card element? Oh, I think this P is going to be a child element, and maybe both of these links are children of this full card as well. And we are able to use this full card class to say, hey, I want to do some stuff to this box. And here we're going to say, how about I want to set the margin to 245 pixels. Ooh. Hmm. What have I done wrong? Have I done anything wrong? Hmm. It's disappeared. Oh gosh, you know what? That looks wrong, doesn't it? That looks like I've done something extremely. Do you know what I've done extremely wrong? I said margin, which we learned last week, and it's width, isn't it? Not margin. Look at me reading the instructions, doing something completely thank you, Catherine, looking out for me. We were like, Jess, what are you doing? And I confess, I have no idea what I'm doing. Look at that. I say, oh, we're going to do the width, and instead I do the margin. You are an absolute saint looking out for me being foolish as the day is long. But we're going to run these tests. Ah, and with a quick save from Catherine, everything's fine. The same way we can set the width, not the margin. We can set the height, which is not padding. Let's take the H4 tag and let's go ahead and specify how tall we want that. And I think this is cool because this is going to be, ooh, remember when I told you that, look at this waggy finger. Remember when I told you that I was going to convert you into believing that everything on a web page is a rectangle? And when we're going to adjust the height here, it's more of the same. We're going to talk about rectangles. So we're not changing the height of the text, ooh, but we're changing the height of the element that the text is. You say, Jess, but the element is text. What do you mean we're changing the height of the element and not the height of the text? Let's check it out. I bet this is going to feel a little rectangly, right? So we're going to come to the H4 tag. We're going to set the height to 25 pixels. And look at that. We got a little bit more space where it says, okay, cool. We've got our text and we've got the default amount of padding wrapped around that text. And when we said, hey, I actually want this element to be 25 pixels high, that's a little bit more than the default padding we had. So it says, cool, no problem. I see what you've asked for. You want this element to be 25 pixels tall, and that means it needs a little bit more space. I'm going to set the zoom to 100%. Ooh, Lewis, or would you prefer C or Lewis? I'm being very rude. Couldn't you use margins instead of width to do the same thing? Yes. So with CSS, and you know what, with most things in most kinds of not just web development, but programming, there's going to be multiple ways to get the same impact. Is it better practice to use width? Would it depend on what kind of screen? Hmm. I'm not sure if margins or even padding would be better practice than width, I confess. And whenever I'm not sure, I like to either look at it myself or, because I'm a bully, ask someone else to look it up. But I think in this case, I might be a bit bold and say, you know what? I don't think I care if you use padding or width or height here. I think you can use whichever one makes you happiest. Yes, you're saying, oh, for example, would it be better to set width or say set margins from the right or left side? And do you know what? I'm not aware of any best practices that say one is better than the other. Um, Use the one that works best in your heart and then holds up best in cross-browser testing and testing across different sizes and devices. So do the thing that feels right and then test to make sure that the thing you chose felt okay. Sorry, that's not a very, you want somebody authoritatively to say, oh, always use this first. And I confess I don't know which one I'd use first. So here we're using height kind of to learn height. But there are definitely other ways to get the same effect. And with CSS, there could be so many different ways to get the same visual effect, which can be really cool. Lewis, you ask fantastic questions, and I really appreciate it. We're going to run our tests. Everything continues to be fine. So I'm excited about this because when we're doing applied visual design, we're going to be using a mixture of the CSS we've learned and the HTML we've learned to get different kinds of visual effects. So one thing that's a little bit more challenging here is that it's not going to tell us, hey, use CSS or hey, use HTML. We kind of have to pick up the vibes of what it wants us to do based on the language that's being used. And here we're saying, hey, you can make text bold by using the strong tag. And it's not saying you're going to write some HTML, but we've got to, let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger and we don't need the zoom to pass. But we've got a pretty good hint that it means HTML, yeah? We say the strong tag, and I say, okay, a tag. I know tag means HTML. And here it's doing something really cool where it's giving us a peek behind the browser. And it says, hey, when you use this HTML tag, what the browser does for you is the browser applies the CSS of font, the font weight property, and makes it bold. So when you say, I want this to be strong, what the browser does is say, cool, I know the strong tag means to make it look like this CSS, which I'm familiar with. And let's go ahead and wrap a strong tag around Stanford University, but don't include the period, don't include the full stop. So we get to see all of our CSS up here. I know this is going to make you dizzy. Let's take a deep breath and whoosh all the way down until we see our sort of HTML start. We're seeing those little Pac-Man braces that we're so happy with, or Mrs. Pac-Man, Pac-Woman braces. And we're going to come down to where it says Stanford University. We're going to start the tag. And this is immediately going to look wrong. Go ahead and yell at me about why this is wrong while I set this up. Strong, woof. And that made everything on the page after this wrong. Why? Is it because I didn't close it? Ah, so not closing a tag that needs to be closed can feel a little bit like a rookie move. Yep, this is not a self-closing tag. So let's go ahead, and you are all absolutely perfect and after my own heart. And I really want to reassure you. You'd be like, oh, I forgot to close the tag. I'm the worst web. And no, you're not the worst web developer. Don't you make me fuss you out. Everybody forgets to close tags all the time. And proper, deadly serious web developers do too. It's fine. It happens. Everything's chill. So we've learned how to make things strong. Let's do some more weird stuff to text. Let's underline some text. Sometimes you're like, hey, we've used bold to show this is important. I want to underline something to show it's important. Or maybe I want to underline and bold something because I'm extremely not messing around. You can do both. But here we're just going to underline. And we're going to underline using this U tag. We're going to come all the way down, take a deep breath again. Whew, to our HTML, because we've been told this is a U tag. We can do this, right? And we want to underline where it says PhD students. We're going to see the exact same problem, aren't we? As soon as I say underline, it underlines everything. We just need to go in and say, hey, be cool. I want it to stop here. Everything's fine. Let's push the button. And we're 10% done and we've already started. We're going to italicize it. We're going to make everything sort of lean over a bit. Yeah, we're going to italicize this whole paragraph. But here it tells us when you use the M tag to italicize something, it applies the CSS property font style with the value of italic. But we're not. We could come in here and say font style italic. We're not going to do that because we've been told to use the M tag. And here it says wrap the N tag around the contents of the paragraph tag to give it emphasis. And here we've got a couple of extra rules. So here it says your code should add an M tag to the markup. Don't you go and do that in CSS. I'll say, okay. And here it says the M tag should wrap the contents of the P tag, but not the P tag itself. So, yeah, let's take a deep breath. Come all the way down. Oh, heck. And find that P tag. Here we've got our P tag. So here it says it wants us to do the content, but not wrap the tag itself. So here. Oh, heck, sorry. M here, isn't it? And of course, we see the whole thing italicize itself. And we don't want that. We just want to go in and say, let's wrap all of the content in the P tag in an opening and closing M tag, but not the tags themselves. I think we can run our tests. And everything continues to be chill. Look at how easy, look at this. Wow. Look at how easy these discrete individual lessons are. I don't want to lie to you and say, oh, look how easy applied visual design is, because I confess I'm rubbish with it. And I really like this text option we're going to be playing with for a second. Oh, M is absolutely a unit of measurement as well. So remember, pixels are an absolute unit of measurement. They're like a millimeter or an inch, but they're little bitty things. Whereas an M is relative to one line of regular paragraph text. Oh, Lewis, after my own heart. And this lets me share what an absolute old lady I am. And I always love to be old out loud. And Lewis is saying, Jess, you just showed us how to use the strong tag and you just showed us how to use the M tag. But I heard that back in the day when y'all first started writing HTML, that strong used to be B and M used to be I. Can I use those? I say, you could use those. Most browsers would understand what you're talking about. But sometimes, and really relatively rarely, old HTML tags will be deprecated, they'll be retired. And strong got retired, bold got retired, the B tag for bold got retired and replaced by strong, and italic got retired and replaced by M. And the class yesterday, who were so lovely, yesterday I was like, I don't know why. Um, oh gosh, yeah. So M can be a unit of measurement, or here it's emphasis for a tag. Um, and these got retired because made retired. Gosh, I've just said it. Um, what was the word I used for retired? Not made redundant. That's when you get fired. So these were retired because they were sort of felt a little bit more typesetty than semantic content. They didn't carry as much information as strong or emphasis. Um, so now we've just replaced them. So if you think, oh, I want to use the bold tag, I say, no, you don't. You want to use the strong tag. But in most cases, if you do mess up and use the bold tag, most browsers will know what you're talking about anyway. But please don't. Deprecated was the word. Thank you so much from London. Deprecated. So we're not using those anymore, but most of the time they'll still work. Some of the ones we don't work. Look at me being an old lady and say, well, back in my day, HTML, we didn't have this fancy CSS. We had this thing called marquee, and marquee has been completely deprecated. And probably for a lot of reasons, but I think because it was super annoying. I made my first website when I was 13 and I was super annoying about it. And marquee was literally where you made the text scroll across the screen. It was so distracting. And there was a blink tag that's been deprecated as well, which made your text blink, which is great if you're a 13-year-old and very annoying, and not great if you're a user coming in and trying to figure out what it says. Let's go ahead and I like this. We're going to use an S tag to strike through text. And well, that's weird, Jess. Why do I want to cross text out? And I said, well, you want to show that this content existed or usually exists, and it just doesn't happen to right now. Maybe you're building a website for a cafe and you say, oh, hey, our specials for the day are sold out, but I want you to be able to see what they are. So, oh, Kai, you know what? You're so good. The new tags really carry more semantic weight. They carry more information about what they mean than about than the information about the looks like the old tags did. Um, I swear, you know what? We're definitely gonna have to work out some way where as y'all graduate, um, where y'all graduate, I get to bully you to teach some lessons as well. Oh, is M Chili Con Carne is saying M isn't deprecated. Thank you so much, my love. M isn't deprecated. I'm a liar. I'm often a liar. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought we weren't using. So M isn't deprecated. Italics is deprecated, isn't it? I hope that's what I said. Sorry, I'm rubbish. I think I'm getting you all confused. So the I tag is what we're not using anymore, and the M for emphasis is what we're using to italicize things. Kai is using, I still want to use marquee. What do we use now? And I said, well, you can get the same effect as marquee doing some fancy things with CSS or some fancy things with JavaScript. But I confess you probably shouldn't. It's going to be really distracting and it's going to be really ugly. But I think I would if I was still allowed. I mean, it's your website, but it's going to be a lot harder for people to read. So we're going to cross off some text. Yeah. And we're going to do that using the S tag. And S is really relatively easy to remember, isn't it? S for strike through. We're going to cross out Google and then write alphabet instead. Because didn't that happen a couple years ago where the parent company for Google is now Alphabet? Deep breath in as we scroll all the way down. Where's that H for? We're going to cross her out. I don't know why an H4 is a her in my mind, but I'm standing by it. I perhaps in my mind think all of if I spelled alphabet right. right? There's nothing worse than having, there's many things worse, but in my drama, I'll say there's nothing worse than trying to spell where people can see you. I'm going to go ahead. Google's crossed out. It says alphabet. We feel okay with this? Yeah. Let's keep hustling. We're to create a horizontal line using the HR element. And I'm consistently being mean to y'all and saying, you must close your HTML elements. You must close your tags. But this one's a self-closing tag. They're like, and I know I've said they're like irregular verbs. I think there's two different concepts that feel like irregular verbs here. Oh, so Catherine's saying, well, I mean, the S tag, you're having a hard time thinking of a practical example. What if you wanted to use it for emphasis? So you wanted to use sort of, maybe it's being used in a short story. And the author has used a strike through for emphasis or to show somebody's crossing things off. Or you're using the example of a to-do list and you say, oh, here are all the things I finish before I have my coffee. And really, I'm grasping at straws because I don't think I use the S tag myself. But if you ever need it, it exists. If you don't think there's a good use for it, it's all chill. We're going to create a horizontal line. And as enraging as it is, this one's another self-closing tag. So you don't need to close it. We are going to come to underneath the H4 and we're going to draw a line. Deep breath in as we scroll all the way down. There's got to be a better way than me dizzyingly scrolling down. And that's an HR, isn't it? And look at that. Even before we close the tag, it says, I bet I know what you want. I bet you want a horizontal line. Looks like a line to me. I think we can say go and we're great. Ooh, so this is going to be weird. You know how I keep telling you, okay, well, there's a lot of different ways to do things, and sometimes it gets really frustrating. I'm sorry. I'm only a little bit sorry because I find it frustrating too. And we've already learned about a bunch of different ways to do color, right? We've learned about using the keywords for color, and that's chill. And we've learned about those hex codes if you want to feel like a style witch. And we've learned about the RGB. And I say, and you're like, Jess, that's 3 different ways. That's too much. I'm done. And I say, oh, but what if there were 4 ways? And we're going to learn about RGBA today, where the A stands for alpha, or the level of opacity. Opacity? I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. But that means how see-through something is. So we're going to set the background color of our text, and that's really going to look like a highlighter. So when we use RGB for colors, we know that 0 is give me none of this color, and 255 is give me all of this color. But frustratingly, when we set our alpha level, that starts at 0 and goes to 1. And 0 means completely see-through. Just make it clear. Make it look like I've done nothing. And 1 means make it completely opaque. Make it solid color. Make it so I can't see the text. And we're going to use decimals to pick sort of a see-through enough way to highlight this. We're going to come all the way down and we're going to highlight alphabet using the background color property of text. So we're going to come to our H. How are we going to do this? You use background color. Yep. So for our H4, oh, and who was it who asked this question a while ago? Lewis, it was you. Lewis asked, hey, you said a height property here. Could I have done this with padding? And we're going to do it with padding. So the 2 things we're being asked to do is set the background color of the H4 and get rid of the height and turn it into padding instead. So thank you so much for being so robustly and consistently right, even though oftentimes that'll make the effect sort of doing this with padding instead of element height can have an impact on can it have an impact on different screens? I was about to talk some nonsense. If you're using one over the other, test robustly to make sure it doesn't change weird things. So we're going to do background color first. We're going to RGBA. We're going to say, give me 45 reds, give me 45 greens, and give me 45 blues. Ooh, heck. And we haven't set the opacity yet. Ooh, as soon as I put that comment, it knew I was going to make this more opaque. I want to say 0.1. Give me a little tiny bit of gray. Cool. And we're going to get rid of this height. And you know what? I think that it's not going to feel the exact same. We're going to add a padding of 10 pixels. And I think that's probably going to stretch this a little bit. Yeah. Padding 10 pixels. Ooh, what have I done wrong? Oh, you know what I've done wrong. Ah, ah. It is super common to forget to add your semicolons, and it just means stuff won't really work until you put them back. So we've got a little bit more padding on our element, but we've got 10 pixels of padding. Looks like it might be a little bit more than a height of 25 pixels was. And we've got this very, very pretty light gray highlight using the background color. We're to come all the way down. We're going to run our tests. And look at this. We're like 17. Look how fast we're going. And it's never a race. I'm just really delighted that they've given us little tiny bite-sized ones. Just because they feel really rewarding, isn't it? When you keep getting the ba-bum, you're great thing. So we're going to adjust the size of our heading versus our paragraph tag. And here, the header tags run from H1 to H6, and you should use these in order of importance, not in order of size. And I say that so confidently. When I made my first website, when I was a 13-year-old who loved the marquee tag, I definitely used H1 or H3 or H for the size. But now that I'm I was going to say a little older. Now that I'm a lot older and a little wiser, I know now that H1s are for the most important. And I usually only have one on a page. And H2 are for those subheadings. And H3s are for the subheadings. So it's really about nesting and information architecture more than the size. And we don't change the heading number, H1, H2, H3, for the size, because we can change the font size to whatever we want. Look at this. We say, hey, font size is a CSS property. Let's go ahead and change the font size in the H4 selector. 27. Oh, heck. Pixels is the default, isn't it? So I went ahead and did that. Let's change that to 27 pixels. Why not? We are the absolute monarchs of our own website. We can do whatever we want as long as we can figure out how to make the HTML and CSS work. So we can press Shift and oh heck. We're gonna run our tests. And we can push Control Enter to. Oh, this is so useful. So this is saying, hey, and only donate if you've got the money, if you're comfortable. Don't you go giving away money you don't have. So I really want to stress that Free Code Camp and this boot camp are two separate things. So I'm Jess. Hey. And I'm getting to run this because the good people at Class Central, it was, hey, we've got these forums and hey, we've got these moderators who I confess are much, much smarter and much better at this than I am. Actually, our moderator today is Mervin. So if everybody can say, hi, Mervin, and just fuss over how lovely Mervin is, that would be cool. But Free Code Camp, the folks who are giving us this curriculum and really giving the world this curriculum to use are completely separate to us, and they're a nonprofit. If you're able to kick them either $5 a month, or if you're able to kick them a little bit of one-off money, it's a really solid thing to do. But if you're unemployed or underemployed, or you just don't have the cash right now, like the 2020s are hard, don't you dare try and give up money you don't have. And this is my bootcamp version. I promise I do donate, just not on this one because this is my second one. Oh, heck, wait, no, that was my Ask Later one. So we're going to add some shadows. Do you want to get weird? We've got everybody saying, "Oh, Mervin, we adore you." Don't we? And Mervin is just so shy and lovely. I'm just being mean. I'm evil. So we're going to add a box shadow to a card-like element. This thing we have here, it's like a card, right? We're going to add a box shadow to it. And a box shadow is weird. And if you forget all of these different things that go in a box shadow, that is completely fine. I never remember them. I always have to look them up. I mean, you're automatic, just out of the box, going to be much better than I am because y'all are young, y'all are babies, and you have good memories. So a box shadow property does exactly what it sounds like. It draws a shadow around an element. It takes the values. So you can say the first value you give it, and you have to put them in this order because we're not going to say offset X, offset Y. We're just going to give it numbers, and we're going to give it numbers in this order. So the first number you give it is offset X, how much you want to push the shadow horizontally from the element. And then you say, here's another number. That's our offset Y. That's how far you want to push the shadow vertically from the element. The blur radius is how far you want to blur it out. The spread radius is how much you want to spread out. And color, I mean, it's color, right? Yeah. So we're going to add two different shadows at the same time, making it mostly transparent black. So the element now has an ID of thumbnail. We're going to use the thumbnail selector. Cool. It said selector, so I gotta oh, God, and it says CSS, doesn't it? So this is cheating. We don't have to, well, do we think it's HTML? Oh, it said selector. Selector usually, it went ahead and told us CSS, didn't it? So the first thing we're going to do, oh, Catherine, look at you. This is such a good point. If you make a box shadow you really like, make it a CSS variable. That way you can just sort of use it all over the place. Catherine, this is well, not the most sensible thing you've ever said because you pop up saying something incredibly sensible every session. But this is one of the most sensible things I've seen about CSS shadows in 100,000 years. Thank you so much. So we know that we're going to be looking for a ID selector, and we know those start with a hash. So let's see if they've done it for us. H4 selector, P selector, links class, full card class, card content class, we don't got it. Okay, because our style tag ends here. I love that, Catherine. Just like, I'm great. You are. Like, I absolutely live for this sort of, yeah, I'm great. Well deserved as well. So we don't have our selector for our ID of thumbnail, but we know that a selector starts with a hash. So we'll go ahead and check the hash. Oh, someone's asking, how do we do that? The CSS variable thing. I'm going to send you back to the last lesson in CSS because you built a CSS variable when you were playing with that penguin. Remember that we built the penguin skin variable and we built the penguin beak variable. So we've done that before. If you want to try that again, I'd send you back to your last lessons to look at that and say, oh, I'm going to maybe make a shadow for this penguin and just copy the just sounds very easy. Copy the syntax. Yeah. Oh, and yep, August is pointing out you'd want to put that in the root pseudo class to make that globally available, to make it available for everything in your in that one HTML file. You are after my own heart. Here, you're using the ID selector of thumbnail. And here it said, use these properties. So we're going to copy and paste them because I was about to say because we are lazy. You all are not lazy. I'm very, very lazy. And that gave us a shadow. Boom, right away a shadow. But you'll notice that we have two shadows. So it had a box shadow. And let's come up and let's look at what these numbers are. And whenever we've got a bunch of stuff and we're not sure what it does, we're going to get weird, right? So we know this first number. We know that's the offset X. And that's set to 0. We're not really stretching this horizontally. And then we've got our offset Y, how far we push the shadow vertically. And then we've got our blur radius. blur this out 20 pixels. And you'll notice that both blur radius and spread radius, both of those are optional. So here we don't have a spread radius. We go right into the RGBA. What happens if I add a spread radius? I make it 30 pixels. Ooh. Ooh, heck. We needed that space. That space was important. And I say, hey, blur this out 30 pixels. Spread this out 30 pixels, not blur it. And then it says, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm going to blur this out at 30 pixels just for you. So this is weird. And this is going to feel weird. And it's going to keep feeling weird. And it's okay that it's weird. I'm going to give you my bad advice that I give you sometimes, which is what you get told when you're a kid. Oh, it'll make sense when you're older. But it's not a matter of older. If this feels weird, go ahead and just play with these shadows for a while. Make it pink, spread it way out, squish it up. Go ahead and get weird with these for a while, because the more you use these, the more sense they'll make. So you'll understand when you're older, but older in terms of messing with stuff. Let's run our tests. Everything's fine. So we learned about opacity. Oh, there we go. That's how you pronounce that. Oh, just dropping everything. Everything's terrible. So we learned about opacity before, and we learned that opacity comes from a scale of 0, which is completely see-through, to 1, which is not see-through at all. Oh gosh, is it clockwise as well? I'm not sure. Because some of them, because really for shadows, it's just horizontal and then up. Because the last two values are how far it blurs and how far it spreads. So it's mostly just horizontal first and then up. You want it to be clockwise. I want it to be clockwise for you. But alas, I don't think it's as clocky as oh, sorry, I'm reversed, aren't I? So it wants to be, but it's not, I'm afraid. So somebody asked me a really good question earlier. Say, hey, can I make anything more see-through? And I said, yeah, you can make most things, most elements, see-through. And our value, 0, completely transparent, 0.5 is halfway see-through, and 1 is not see-through at all. We're going to get our anchor tags using the links class, and we're going to make them a little bit see-through. And for those of you who are non-native speakers of English, I'm super conscious that saying opaque and transparent and see-through, these are like weird vocabulary words, right? I'm so sorry that you know what my big weird dream is, to be able to offer this in a bunch of different languages. So the opacity of our anchor tags is 0.7. We're going to use the links class. So we're going to look for that full stop and then links. Oh, sorry, I'm just grabbing that. I'm not helping you out. Links, 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 links. Aha, I've got you. And here we're going to say opacity. And if you forget how to spell this, you are exactly on the same footing as me. I do it too. We're going to put that 0.7. Oh, and look, it changed just a little bit. It's a little bit more see-through. And whenever you're not sure if something worked, go ahead and go a little bit bigger. Say 0.3. Oof, that's terribly difficult to read. 0.7. A little bit more gray. We're about halfway done for today. We're hustling everything. Ooh, I'm excited for this one, because after this, we're going to have to learn about positioning, which is a little bit hard. We're going to use text transform, and text transform feels like magic. So you're not going to change your text, but the text itself, I'm not going to change it. But the way it looks is going to change for your user. And a lot of this feels a little bit common sense. So the text transform property takes one of 5 different values. And if you say, and it feels like a magic spell, doesn't it? Text transform lowercase makes all of the text ba-da-da-dum, lowercase. And if you say text transform uppercase, well, I mean, it makes all of the text uppercase. If you say text transform capitalize, it makes the first letter of each word capitalized. Text transform initial, you say, well, use whatever the default is. Go ahead and, yeah, use whatever you were going to use. Text transform inherit says, just use what my mom was using. Use whatever text transform was set there. And none is the default. So it says use the original text. And you might say, well, what's the difference between none and initial? And I only learned this yesterday. So here I am intoning wisdom that somebody told me yesterday. And you'd use none because it strips out all of the formatting. Initial might use inherited values, whereas none says, don't you dare take a value from a parent. Give me the original text and don't mess about. So we're going to transform the text of H4 to be uppercase using the text transform. I think this is going to feel really rewarding, don't you? Or where I have to write, transform, and spell it right while everybody can see me. Text transform. And what did we say? Did we say uppercase? Look at that. Isn't that cool? Let's come down. I'm going to zip you all the way down. Take a deep breath. And you'll see that the actual text hasn't changed, but the way it's displayed to the user has changed. I think this is so cool and weird. Halfway done. Well, halfway done for today. And we talked about how you don't want to change which H you're using, which heading you're using for size, that you can go ahead and set this. Oh, if there any point for setting text transform initial, if that's the value it would use anyway. Maybe if you're running into issues of inheritance, maybe there are two conflicting things it could inherit. You know what? I'm not quite sure why you might use it. Catherine, uh-oh, uh-oh. Whenever you ask a good question, the three things you can do are ask somebody who might know, which you've done, and of course I don't know. I'm not sure why I would use this in practice. You could look it up, or you could get weird. And this feels like a look it up question. Would it be super mean to say, hey, could you look up? And we might want to brainstorm what the things to look up, what the search terms might be here. I think a search term like, when do I use text transform initial? Or what is text transform initial good for? Might lend a lot of thought. Look at me. I'm just a meanie. I was just as bad when I was a classroom teacher where I was like, that's a good question. Go to the dictionary, please. Look at that. If you ask a good question, you just get punished. And if you don't feel like looking it up, we can be mean to Mervin. As long as I get to be mean to somebody today, that's really what I'm looking for. So, here's a bunch of questions. And I'm not going to ask these rhetorical questions because I need to drink some water. So I'm going to ask this question and drink some water and chill. It says to use the font size property. Are we going to do this in HTML or CSS? And how are we going to do this? Oh, after my own heart, Mervin. So here's the MDN. Here's the documentation for what we think makes the most sense here. Yeah. But it might also be still useful asking that question because I think Catherine was so patient to say, oh, I'm on it. Specifically searching for, hey, when is it useful to use this? And MDN, I bet, might address this. But yeah, am I going to use HTML or CSS to set the font size property? No, for real, tell me. I'm just going to chill until somebody does. Just a PSA for staying hydrated. Oh, and this is a good time to say, while you're programming, and yes, tutorials of programming, this is web development, this counts. please, please, please make sure you've got some water. Make sure, yeah, like the care and comfort while coding is really important. Get some music on that makes you happy. Just go ahead and chill real good in the ways that make you happiest. I'm not going to be waiting some time. Oh gosh, people are saying, oh, MDM is the resource. I like it as well. I'm going to go ahead and cheat and say, well, you know what? This told me to use the font size property. I feel a little bit sure that that might mean CSS. And do you know what? Free Code Camp is very rarely mean to me, and it's given me a lot of space in these style tags. Yeah, I think it wants me to use CSS. Oh, also this kind of set the font size property. These are some CSS code words, right? And we've got a couple different ways we could do this. Yeah, we could set selectors and say, make all of my H1 this, make all of my H2 this. And that's probably what I would do on a website. I could use a class and say, oh, I'm going to set individual classes for each of those. Well, that's going to be twice as much typing and I don't want to do it. Or we could say, you know what, I only have one of each of these on my website. I want to use IDs so they all feel really special. But that's also going to be twice as much typing and I don't want to. So, as a deeply lazy person, watch me copy and paste command, see where it says font size. I'm going to do these as selectors. Let's zip through them. Well, let's zip through them nice and lazy. H1. So, this is going to change all of my H1 elements, even though I only have one. And this is telling me to make it 68 pixels. And that doesn't really feel like it changed much. And whenever I'm not sure if I've done something wrong, I say, well, I mean, that looks like the exact same size to me. What are the three things we can do when we're not sure? We can ask somebody. I can say, hey, did this change? And y'all would be like, why? Maybe it was subtle. I can look it up and say, hey, what's the default for an H1? Or I can get weird. And you know what? Get weird is my favorite one. I'm going to get weird and say, well, 68 pixels didn't really change. Oh, Catherine, I'm so sorry. That's what you get when you ask a good question. There's a lot of reading. I say, oh, why might I use this? And you don't have to do that reading now, but it's just a good, I've got a question. Even more than the answer to that specific question, just the me, well, me getting to be mean to you. I love being mean to people who are smarter than me, but also, hey, let's flex this sort of lookup muscle, yeah. But let's go ahead and get weird for a second. I don't know if the 68 pixels changed. Let's make it 260. Whoa. Okay. So that selector definitely worked. Let's go ahead and do our H2. Oh, heck. Let's do it right. We're going to paste that font size property just because we don't want to type it every time. We're going to make it 52. Oh, you know what? That did change. That made it a little bit bigger. I'm feeling more confident that we're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing. Here's our H3 selector. I'm going to paste font size because I hate typing. And our font size for this one's going to be 40. Ooh, look at that jump. Keep going down this list. You know, say H4, set our font size. What is that going to be? It's going to be 32. Yeah, everything's chill. H5, font size. Where are we? H5s want to be 21. Oh, that got a bit of jump. I'm going to scroll down so we can see the H6 change as well. Right now, our H6 is just a little bitty baby. What are we going to do? Are we going to change her a lot? I can't tell why all HTML elements are fancy ladies in my head. I think that's sort of, I always see them as very, very stoic matrons. The font size for this is going to be 14 pixels. Oh gosh, look at me. Ooh, look at what I've done. Of course, you all do this properly, but I haven't. Oh, you know what? I do think Kai's asking a really good question. And the three things we do: ask a question, look it up, or get weird. And getting weird here would mean testing across a bunch of different browsers. I can tell you that I believe it does, but could you look it up? If you're on a device where it's easy to look stuff up, yeah. Would it be possible for you to look that up while we chat? I've been an absolute goof, and even though It is, even though our CSS assumes pixel by default for font size, I haven't written pixel. Oh, so Chili Con Carne is saying the default font size, I think that's for in a paragraph is going to be 16 pixels. Yeah. Is that's across all browsers? I thought that maybe browsers had different defaults. I'm thinking of mobile browser. Do you know what? I am genuinely and politely unsure. Y'all can y'all could tell me anything and I'd be like, oh yes, I absolutely believe that because you're wonderfully trustworthy. We're gonna run our tests. And let's do a little bit more weird stuff with our fonts. We're going to set our font weight. And this is going to be weird for folks who are non-native speakers of English because I'm going to give you sort of an English language internet neologism, which is that sometimes when people in online talk about big, mostly pets, they talk about a big cat or a big chubby dog. They talk about the chonkiness of the dog or the chonkiness of the cat or the chonkiness of the guinea. So the big, cute heaviness of it. And here, when we talk about font weight, we're going to talk about, Kai says, Chilicon is absolutely right. You are, and you know what? We didn't doubt you for a second, but it's also nice to look it up. So here, when we're talking about the font weight, we're sort of talking about the chunkiness of the test. So how thick or thin the individual characters are in this text. And these are going to be in hundreds from 0 to 900, I think. So you can set it to 0, 100, 200, 300, 400, up to 900. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I'm about to do them here. Let's go ahead. And I think this idea of like heaviness, right? How heavy these letters are going to be is going to feel a lot less weird in a second. Whenever we're not sure, let's get weird. Let's get weird. Say the font weight. And y'all know I'm lazy, right? Am I going to copy it? Yeah, I'm going to copy it. So the font weight for this one is going to be 800. That didn't look like it moved at all, did it? What if we change it to 100? Ooh, okay, dramatic change. So we do think this is changing. 800. Let's keep going and see. I bet it's going to give us some good contrast, right? I'm going to paste font weight because I hate to type. What a terrible job for me for somebody who hates to type. That's six. You know what? The difference between 800 and 600, that's not a lot at all. Let's paste again because when I say we, I mean me. I'm very lazy. You know what? I'm not even going to say lazy anymore. I'm energy efficient. You know what? When we look at the difference between 500 and 800, we're starting to see a little bit of a difference, isn't it? Like 500 seems significantly less chunky, significantly less weighty than that 800 does. I'm going to scroll down a little bit just so we can see the contrast as we go. We'll come down and do our H4, the paste font weight because I'm conserving my energy. And we're going to make this 400. Yeah. Oh gosh, do you know what? I keep looking at it in the list and it's just going down by 100 every time. I could just go ahead and get a move on then. Right here, it's going to be 300 then. Oh, and look at this. From 300 to 800. Look at that contrast. And actually, am I lying? Is 900? Oh, good. 900 does make that even heavier. We're going to come down and we're going to make the last one, this H6. We're going to make it very, very. Oh, did they? Oh gosh, they did skip 600. I would not have noticed that at all. Thank you so much, my love. Look at how impossibly overly familiar I am with y'all, where I'm like, my love, my darling. Look how little tiny bitty this is and how substantial and meaningful this is. We were getting some good contrast in here, even if we left 700 out. Let's run our tests and move forward with joy in our hearts. We're going to set the font size of the. And somebody asked me a really good question yesterday, and I love, love, love when learners do this. And they said, "Oh, Jess, I'm so sorry. Can you zoom in? I can't see that." And I said, "Yeah." Weirdly, that's the point. This text here, y'all can't see that a bit, can you? I also can't see it with my little old lady eyes, but I can see what it says here. And we talked about this really early. We talked about this in the HTML section when we first started learning HTML, that there's some like traditions in web development, and some traditions in all kind of development. And lorem ipsum is one of these weird traditions where if you don't have a piece of text and you're building a website, it's traditional to use lorem ipsum, this specific piece of heck, nope, undo. The specific piece of Cicero, I believe it might be. And you just copy and paste this Latin text. And when your boss or when your coworker or when the content department gives you the proper text, you just replace it. So here, this is too small. I can't see it. I don't like it. So we're going to change the font size property right here. It's 10 pixels. That is clearly too small, isn't it? Shall we make it 16? Oh, and you know what? Chili and Kai both were like, hey, 16 is actually the default. So we've just gone ahead and said, well, we artificially made this smaller than it need to be. Let's go ahead and turn it back to what it should be. We're going to run our tests and we're going to skip merrily along. We're going to set the line height of paragraphs. And this is another one where we said, hey, there's multiple different ways to do. Ooh. Oh, is that true? Oh gosh, it's not actually Latin. Do you know what? I always thought it was actually Latin. Artregan, you're absolutely fascinating, and you've given me something to look up in my free time. Um, who- Lauren Ibsen. Ooh, so it is a corrupted version. So hang on. I'm just reading to you all and not letting you see it. Um, Art, you are absolutely right. This is not just Latin. This is saying, oh, this is a corrupted version of a text. So they took a text and they changed the words, they added it. So it doesn't mean anything. It's improper Latin. It's nonsense. It's joyful nonsense. So it means nothing, but it feels kind of texty is the general. Let me go ahead and chuck this in here, yeah? Thank you so much. Y'all go ahead and yell at me when I'm telling lies, because I seem to do it rather consistently. This is very look at this example text. Ooh. Oh, cool. It's from Cicero. I think I said somebody else as well. Let's go back in time. We did this one already. Oh, what? Oh gosh, no, we didn't. This is where we're at. So we're going to set the line height. And what the line height is going to set is it's going to set how tall each line of text is. It's not going to change the size of the text because we do that with font size, but it's going to change the size of the line. What do you think that's going to look like if we increase the size of the line, but not the size of the text? Whenever we're not sure, let's just do it. And of all of our three options for learning a new thing, ask somebody, look it up, or get weird. Get weird is so reassuring, isn't it? We're going for a line size. I love the control and Kai's saying, hey, I think this is going to be more spaced out, more readable. And you know what? Yeah, look at that. We just got some more space. And that was a little bit subtle, wasn't it? Whenever we're not sure if it worked. Ooh. Oh, gosh. You know why this didn't work? Look at me. And height. That feels like the actual CSS property, doesn't it? Line height. And we're going to set that to 25 pixels. Just like Koo, thank you so much for catching me on this. I really appreciate it. Um, Look at that. Everything's fine. So, just like Kai suggested, hey, I think this is going to space this out a bit. It's going to make this more readable. I'm going to find this more relaxing to look at. We're going to run all our tests. And it says 4% complete because I'm using a incognito browser, which doesn't the only Yeah, let's talk about incognito for a second. So if you're using a browser like Chrome and you're using the incognito browser and you say, "Oh, this is my super secret spy way to look at the internet. No one knows what I'm looking at." And I mean, that's not really true. If you're using a browser like Chrome, using incognito browser means that the browsing you're doing or the searching you're doing is going to stay hidden from other people using the same computer or other people using the same browser. It doesn't really keep your stuff private from Google. Which, if that's the kind of stuff you're worried about, have you heard the good word about Firefox or Brave or Vivaldi, which are generally browsers that are considered a little bit more private? Oh, sorry. Let's calm down. Let's come back down. Let's center it. Yeah, guys, saying, oh, it was tracking this a while ago, but it's not. And the issue is that I went away from the site. We went over to Wikipedia and came back. And because the incognito browser is not storing our progress between sessions, once I went away, it said, I don't need to remember any of this. So now it went ahead and just dropped all of the progress we had made to date. And that's okay. That's what I wanted out of it. It's cool. So remember when we learned about root as a pseudo class, right? Or as a pseudo selector. And y'all were like, oh, that's weird, right? It's like a pretend, or it's like a mock. It's like a mock select. We're going to do a mock class. And this mock class this pseudo class is pseudo because it only exists for a brief moment in time. Isn't that magical? Oh, the idea of it only existing in a brief moment in time. So this pseudo class is called A and hover. And the deal is that this class is going to let me set rules that are only going to come into play when I'm hovering over the element. Weird, right? So we're going to go ahead so right now when I hover over this, it's black. Nothing changes. We're going to set a rule. This is when I hover over this link. So this is the A selector. And this is the rule for all of my anchor tags, all of my links. Yeah. And this is my pseudo class for anchor tags when they're being hovered over. And I say, well, make them blue. I hover. You say, oh, I got this question yesterday, and there are no weird questions. And I genuinely didn't know. Somebody said, can I hover over? Can I set a hover pseudo class for other things? I said, oh, I've never tried anything but links. Try it. And here we've got hello. Do you think this is going to work? I genuinely had no idea yesterday. So we're going to hover, and we'll say color is pink. Yeah? 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 Oh, what have I done? Oh gosh, no, I'm rubbish. I said A again. H1. So I said, hey, when I'm hovering over my link, make it blue. And when I'm hovering over my H1, make it pink. And I had never tried this before. And someone asked me yesterday, Catherine, saying, you think it'll work? Because you know what, with my foolishness, I had set people up to say, well, you're going to be disappointed. I don't think this is going to work. I don't think it's real. Look at that. It works. Y'all can get weird. You could set the opacity. You could make it more see-through when you hover. You could do all of the weird stuff that exists in your heart. And I was such a downer. I was like, I don't think it's going to work. You've got to be ready to be disappointed. And boom, it works. Really, the real lesson here is you should never, never listen to me, and instead listen to your hearts and your exploration. We're going to run these tests. We're 6% complete, but we know that's a lie. Ooh, do you want to do the hard stuff? So we're going to have to talk about this for a little bit as well, because we're back to our rectangles. And we're going to learn a couple of big chunky things here. But when we're done with positioning, we're just going to be done for the day. It's all fine. So here it's CSS treats every HTML element as though it's its own box. Yeah? Usually referred to as the CSS box model. Yeah, okay. box level items automatically start on a new line, or block level items. And you've seen this before. So when you have an H1 and then you create an H2, that by default just puts itself on a new line. But then some other types of things, like images or spans, those don't go on a new line by default. And this automatic styling, this default styling, is called um, oh gosh, what's it called? Normal flow. I blanked on what it's called, and I'm literally looking at it. So the default layout of elements is called the normal flow. And all of this positioning we're about to learn is us being a little bit disrespectful, but in a cool way. We say, hey, CSS, I understand you've got a normal flow. I understand that you know how you like this laid out, but I don't respect that normal flow. I've got a different plan for this. Let me go ahead and use positioning to go ahead and break the normal flow and do something different. And the first type of positioning we're going to learn is relative. Ooh. And when you say a position is relative, yep, August is pointing out some of these are inline elements. And I think that's the distinction there is really important. And I'm going to say it might be useful to look up what's a block level element. Here we've got the examples of headings, paragraphs, divs, or an inline element, like August is happily pointing out, like images or spans that don't, by default, as part of that normal flow, get bumped onto a new line. So the first type of positioning we're going to learn about is relative and say, hey, you know what? Relative to your current position, we're going to move you. So relative to your current position. When you say position relative, I'm going to say, hey, relative to your current position, I want to reorient you to the bottom 10 pixels. And this is going to feel weird because remember when we did margins, and you would say left and it would actually push it right? And you say, what is that? I bet that's going to come back, isn't it? So, yep, relative position is the elements changing where it is relative to its parents. So you've got a H1. And here, they've usually been abstracting away the concept of body, but here we've got the body here. So here I'm going to say, hey, if I moved my H1 relative to where it's sitting in the normal flow now, I'm changing its relation to the parent element, the body element. You are absolutely right, and you are absolutely a saint. Let's look at what that feels like. Oh, here's a big note. So, positioning gives you a lot of flexibility to get super, super weird, but don't get too weird. Like, it'll be kind of a jerk move for your users. If you move something above where it is in the normal flow, somebody using assistive tech isn't going to be able to find your link or find your content as easily. It's just going to get really weird for them. And it would be, well, I believe this is a technical term, but it would be kind of a jerk move. Oh. So we're going to change the position of the H2 to relative. And let's just do this to position. And August is pointing out, hey, when we say position relative, I say, I want you to move this. And what we're using as the benchmark of where you move is your parent. We're going to move this in relation to your mother. Cool. And we're going to move this away from the top. Ooh. We think top is going to be what does that? 15 pixels? You see that sort of woof down? So when we said top 15 pixels, what it did was move down. So it offset this 15 pixels from the top. So took it down. Here's our normal flow. We're taking it 15 pixels away from the top relative to the body, relative to its mother. Is that what you wanted? That's what you wanted me to do. And we're going to keep doing this. And you might say, Jess, this doesn't make any sense. And I say, I know, isn't it great? It's one of these things where it's going to make more sense the older you are in CSS practice. This is going to be one of those things where you just need to keep doing it until it makes more sense. I'm sorry. So the CS, oh, y'all, yeah, yeah. Who asked me earlier? August, was it you who asked, is it clockwise? Which is always such a good question whenever you see four values. And wait, is this clockwise again? Wait, no, it doesn't matter. They're the same options. I was about to be excited. It's like, oh, it's clock. Oh, it's not. It's not clockwise. I'm talking nonsense. Uh, sorry. I was about to be like, this is clockwise. No, that doesn't make any sense. You know what? I told them yesterday that I recently gave up coffee, and this is really proving that I should not have given up coffee. Oh, Catherine, perfect. Catherine encourages us to think of this as, hey, insert, like add how many pixels at the top. I like to think of it as pushing from the direction you specify. But this is good as well. So insert XX pixels at top. Or I like to think of it as I'm at the top, push down 10 pixels or push down 20 pixels. Everything's fine. Um, and really, it's about yeah, it's weird to say, oh, this is philosophy. Oh, this is about whatever model fits best in your head. But this is about the model that fits best in your head. If you think of a better way to envision this, come back and tell us, and we'll joyously share it with the class. So we're going to use CSS. Ooh, look at this. Look at this trick question. So it says use CSS offsets. So we know it means CSS, but it says move the H2 15 pixels to the right. And of course, me being a goofus, I'm like, cool, right, 15. But it says move it to the right. So I think counterintuitively, we're going to push it from the left, right? If we want it to move right, we're going to push it from the left. Left. Push that 15 pixels. Oh, because shall I do another Saturday social sometime soon? I'm not going to do one this Saturday, I confess, because I'm the worst. I'm not the worst teacher out there, but it's supposed to be sunny this Saturday, and I confess I'm going to go outside and have a picnic. But shall we see if Ramon is available to do another Saturday social soon? Ramon is so calm and such a sweetheart, and so easy to sucker into giving up big chunks of his Saturday. I'll go, yeah, I will. But do you know what's even cooler than listening to me more? Well, almost anything. Is we've gone ahead and scheduled the guest speaker for tomorrow, and the guest speaker for tomorrow is extremely heckin' cool. So the guest speaker from tomorrow is an artist, and we're having an artist, Antonio, come and join us. And I wanted to have an artist come and talk to you all because a lot of the stuff that we're learning and doing feels kind of practical. Where it's like, hey, there it is right there. Oh, and his website's so cool. If we have time at the end of this, we'll look at his website. It's so cool. Because a lot of the things you can do with HTML or CSS or even with other programming languages feels like boring jobs, isn't it? We're like, oh, yay, I'm gonna be a web developer. Yay, I'm gonna be a and there's nothing wrong with being a web developer, and there's nothing wrong with being a designer. But to be an artist. And when I talk about getting weird, Antonio Roberts is a glitch artist. And his whole he just gets weird with computers and makes art. He's been on MTV and he's had this stuff at the Tate Modern. He's like so fancy. Oof. And he's going to come and show off how cool he is and show off how to use maybe not necessarily the things we're learning yet, but like how to use programming to make art. Because art's important. I'm so excited to have Antonio. And when we do the session tomorrow, nobody let him know that I was absolutely fawning over how cool he is. Okay. Also, we've been asked to move this 10 pixels up, which that means we need to push from the bottom, right? So I'm at the bottom, and I'm going to push up by 10 pixels. Yeah. We're going to run our tests. Everything is fine. Ooh. So we've learned about position relative. So I'm going to, hey, element, hey, my beloved element, I'm going to move you relative to your mother. Now we're going to learn about position absolute. So I'm going to move this in relation to the whole page. So this is absolute. I'm going to move you 50 pixels, and 50 pixels means 50 pixels. I don't care what your mother says. I don't care what your mother's mother. So I don't care what your parent element says, or that parent element, or that parent element. I'm going to move you relative to the whole page. And that's what we're going to do. So here we've got the search bar. And we're going to go ahead and actually, while I'm doing this, I always forget the formatting. Can somebody remind me what the formatting is to draw a colored border around an element? It would be really, really helpful if I could remember that, and I never can. If anybody can give that to me in the chat, I was about to say I'll give you a gold star, but y'all are grown, and you already all have my love, so there's really nothing more I can give you. We're going to lock an element to its parent with absolute positioning. Stefan, thank you so much. So we're going to go ahead and, Catherine as well. Y'all are super sad. Because shall we add some borders to see what I mean? Because we're going to get weird. So we're going to add some borders to this just to, where would I add that? So border 1 pixel solid blue. Let's go ahead and add, go ahead and draw that around. So we got a blue box around that. Do we feel happy about that? And then I want to border. Can you all see that? Yeah. Let's make it a little bit more. Oof, yeah, 3 pixels. 3 pixels. Okay, so we've got 2 different elements here, with different IDs. And here's the element with the ID of search bar. And I've got a blue box drawn around that. And here I've got this section element, and that's red. That's drawn around in red. We feel okay with that? Now, let's get weird. Yeah? Yeah, let's get weird. So, where am I? So, I'm going to lock it. Did I spell absolute wrong? I spelled absolute wrong. Yes. Absolute. Well, I mean, that'll have to do. And then we're going to say top 50 pixels. Look at that. Let's come down. Let's take a look at what's going on here. So our search bar, heck. Our search bar is a child of the section. If we were using positioning relative, moving search bar 50 pixels, it would mean 50 pixels in relation to its parent. And here, look at the disrespect. Here, when you move it 50 pixels, it doesn't care what its mother says anymore. It says, nope, I've been told to move and the position is absolute. I'm moving 50 pixels relative to the page, not relative to you, mother. Oof, that's very bold. And let's do it again. Let's move it to the right. Oh, heck. By 50 pixels. Look at that. Again, it does not care about it doesn't care at all about what the section is doing. It says, you know what? I've been told that what we're doing is about absolute position. I'm going to move this 50 pixels. And I'm going to move it 50 pixels relative to the page, the whole page. And I don't care about any of my parents. Very bold. And don't worry if this still doesn't make a lot of sense. The thing with positioning and the thing with most of this stuff is, I sound like a broken record telling you to get weird, but just experiment with it. Just play with it until it makes a little bit more sense. Oh, fabulous. Stefan's pointing out if I change position relative from section, it then will push 50 pixels from the body. So we've got a, oh, hang on, we're about to learn another really, really cool one. So we've learned about position relative and we've learned about position absolute. Now we're going to learn about position fixed. And you might say, well, we've already learned absolute. What's the difference between absolute and fixed? And I said, ooh, well, fixed is like getting a hammer and some little nails and nailing it to a specific point in your view. And you say, oh, a specific point on the page. And I say, no, because you can scroll, so you can move on the page and it'll still say hammered to the same position. You say, Jess, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I say, yeah, me neither. Let's go ahead and try this together and see what that means. Let's see what position fixed is going to feel like. Yeah. So here we've got a navigation bar. And we're going to go ahead and make this position fixed just to see what that feels like. So far, we've done that. And it's changed a little bit. And all it means now is when look at that. Look how cool this is. When I scroll, it stays in the same position. But where we've got it now is it stays in the same position in a kind of inconvenient position. Let's go ahead and let's change the offset. And let's make it 0 pixels from the top. Let's put it, you know what? Move it all the way to the top. Thank you. I want to pin it. I want to nail it to the very, very top. And I say also, I want it 0 pixels to the left. I want it really push pinned up. I want it fixed in the top right-hand corner or left-hand corner. Look at me not knowing my. So we've got that So this is a really, really interesting idea. This might be what you want to put in your header is your nav bar. Yeah, I think this would be a really, really sensible thing to put in your header if you use that in your HTML document. So when I scroll, look at that. Look how cool that is. I mean, once I get past the text, it doesn't do much. Please play with this and see, what makes what works for you. And the best part about today's session is we're going to spend so much time on this positioning stuff, which is a little bit miserable. And you know where we're going to stop? We're going to stop right where this gets cool. We're going to get all the way up to color theory and then then we're going to stop. Why? Because I'm mean. So I want to talk to you about floating. So far, prop positioning has been a little bit stressful. And in the natural flow of things, CSS likes to put your rectangles. Here's a rectangle. Likes to sort of stack them from the top down. Like, hey, you know what? I respect that, CSS. I respect that you want to stack my boxes vertically. But here, we're going to use float to say, CSS, I respect that you want to stack this vertically. But I want to take this one thing, I just want to float it to the right. I want it to hang out there. And that's where I want it to live. Now, hey, CSS, I see that you've stacked these all. I just want you to float this to the left. And I want this to live over there on the left. So floating pushes them out of their normal flow and floats them into someplace interesting and beautiful. With float, it is super easy to get your stuff to overlap and do weird stuff. And we'll talk about that in a second. So here we've got one called left and one called right. But I mean, they're not right or left. It's just top and bottom, aren't they? I think that it's going to ask us to float one left and float one right. We can do this. So we don't have to use the position property, but we're just going to set the flow property. Float, float, float. So we're in left. I think this wants us to float left. Oh, look, we've floated this left and it's done nothing. I guess because by default, it's pretty on the left, isn't it? What if we float this to the right? Do you think that's going to feel a little bit more satisfying? Oh, heck. That jumped right. Yeah, so here, Coup makes a coup. What an apt name. Because I went, oh, here we don't have to use property at all, position at all. So it's sort of the same vibe as position, but I'm just going to float this baby here and float this baby here, and that's where they're going to sit, and it's going to be super chill. I like to think of float as the calmest of our ways to sort of set a position. Because you just say, hey, head over there. It's going to be great. Ooh, I had been making all of these absolutely exhausting metaphors. Oh, Z index is like this and Z. And then somebody yesterday mercifully said, no, Jesse, the Z index, which we're about to, if you've never heard of it, don't worry. The Z index property is like pancakes. And the higher the number, the closer you are to the top of the pancakes. So if you've got a stack of pancakes, the highest number Z index is your top pancake, and your lowest number Z index is your bottom pancake. So here we've got two boxes. Yeah. We've got one called first, which is red and absolutely fixed. And the second one is blue and it is absolutely fixed. And these two would be completely overlapping, except the second one is pushed left and then pushed down so that they sort of tessellate. They're very, very pretty. And this one has a Z index of 1. I've just told you that the higher a Z index is, the closer you are to the top of the stack. Here it's asking me, Jess, really? Hey, team, not just me. Please put the red box on top. If I've just told you that the highest Z index ones, and if the Z indexes aren't set, if there's no Z index, the default is the most recent property is on top. That doesn't change. Oh gosh, the example with pancakes is not mine at all. So I believe it was Felis who was around yesterday, made the pancakes point. I was like, oh, these are like Pokemon, and the higher number is a higher battle score. And Felis just came along and was like, Jess, no, that's confusing. They're like pancakes, and then the higher the number, the higher in the stack of pancakes. Everyone is always helping me look smarter than I need to be. So here, and remember, if your Z index isn't set, then the order goes that the more recent you are, the closer you are at the top. So the lower you are in your age, hang on. So because if I take away my Z index, this one is on the bottom because we've drawn this first, and then we've drawn this one second. So it's on top of it. Let's put that back. If we want to make this one on top, let's get the Z index. Z index 2. we could do 6 works and 7 works, 0 doesn't work. But yeah, the highest number is going to win. To keep things straight in your head, you're probably only going to want to, if you've only got 2 elements, keep 2 Z index numbers. Oh, y'all keep talking about pancakes and I'm starving. So cruel. Monsters. We're going to run our tests and everything is fine. Ooh, the margin property. Yeah. You want to get weird? So we want to center something. We say, I got this thing. I want to put it in the center. And I just want it done. Just put this in the middle. And I say, cool. We're going to create a margin property of auto. And that just says, chuck this in the middle. Margin auto, boomf. Chuck it in the middle. It's a very loud bump with a microphone, I bet. Margin auto. Just do the thing. Well, we're not gonna donate on this account. So this is where we stop. When we come back, and this is cheating because this is like 48% of the way done, but a lot of the following lessons are all colors. So I wanted to go ahead and keep these the same. And we're going to be learning about color theory and choosing complementary colors and a color wheel being a really good way to do that. But I can we have an auto margin for the side, but not the top and bottom? Um, mm, I'm not super sure I understand what you mean. So, like, auto, like, center it horizontally, but not center it vertically as well? I don't know. Shall we look it up? Yeah, let's look this up together. We've got a little bit of time. We'll look it up. And if anybody else has some more questions, give me all your questions. Give me your weird questions. Yeah, everything's going to be fine. So go to duck.com because this is where I like to do my searching. And we're going to say um, margin auto CSS. Let's find that MDN. Yeah. 1W3 school. Well, let me give me MDN, please. Yeah, give me margin. So I think auto in my head. Vertical and horizontal. So it looks like auto automatically does vertical and horizontal at the same time. So if you wanted to center this with just, if I wanted to center this with horizontally, I would probably use margin right and left and then a percentage. Yeah, that might be how I would do that. So yes. Oh, we can. We can. Oh, cool. Are you seeing a really good way to do this? The browser selects a suitable margin. Oh, heck, it's right. I just, um, you know what? Oh, hey, Jess, were you looking for how to do horizontal centering? Would you like this big heading, which I think it's going to be an H3? It says horizontal heading. Cool. So put auto instead of size or horizontal centering, display flex. Ooh, flex. Flex. Does that sound maybe like a thing we're going to be learning about at the end of this? Maybe flex box. And then justify content as center. Yeah, we can do that. So we've got a little bit of time left. Please ask me any questions you want, but at the same time, I wanted to go ahead and show off Antonio. He's going to show it off as well, I bet. But let's look at this. So he's a glitch artist. And I confess there are 3 reasons I wanted to have Antonio come and talk to you. A, he's really cool. And be like, look at these cool people. And I wanted to show you like, hey, you don't just have to do commerce. We can do art too. But also a lot of times when we're playing with CSS, or we're working with CSS, it feels like we're trying for this very clean, very precise design. And Antonio is a glitch artist. And I keep lovingly asking you, hey, could you get weird? And all of his work is about using computers to get weird. And I absolutely love the idea of getting somebody to come and talk to you. Like, look at this. Look at this absolutely 1998 Technicolor computer error headache. I love it. I live for it. Ah, fabulous. You all are absolutely perfect. Do you have any questions? Is there anything I can answer for you today? Or can I just continue to chuckle? What is Flexbox? Yeah. So there's 2 sort of philosophical approaches to CSS, 2 systems that we can use to govern our rectangles much more precisely. And we're going to learn, those are the last 2 units at the end of this class. One of those is Flexblocks and one of those is CSS Grid. And it's going to be great because I am terrible at both of those. Like happily terrible, calmly terrible. And it's going to be, yeah, Catherine's here saying, oh, it's a system to organize on your page. It's kind of a complex. Isn't Catherine fantastic? Um, I like to think of Flexbox and Grid as different philosophies for your rectangles. Yeah, yeah. Oh, beautiful. And chili con. coming and being absolutely correct again and say, you know what? Flexbox, yeah, it's a philosophy. You didn't say philosophy, but I'm just going to keep pushing this philosophy. It's a system. There we are. System sounds more precise. It's a system that lets you organize things based on rows and columns. And that's going to be really cool. It's a little bit more of it's a little stricter way to say, hey, rectangles, I meant what I meant. And can be a really, really interesting way to break that down. Oh, cool. Does anybody else have any questions I can answer for you today? If nobody has any more questions, I might go ahead and release class a little bit early. How do we feel about that? It feels all right? Oh gosh, where did that? Yeah. Let's go ahead and let's it's probably not sunny. Well, it might be sunny where you are. Oh, homework, homework, homework. I was like, okay, bye, kids. Kids, y'all are grown as heck. Oh gosh, and Sharina's pointing out that, like, you know what? One of the really nice things is that Flexbox makes centering so easy. Oh, Linda, let's go ahead and do this. So Linda's saying, hey, oh, sorry, what kind of systems or what IDE do you want to use with HTML and CSS work every day? It's really up to you. And that's stressful where I say, oh, it's your choice. You might want to start with something a little bit lightweight. A lot of people like Atom, which is something that the folks over at GitHub make. I personally use Sublime Text as my text editor. But really try something and see what works for you. I'm really sorry. So, because we're staying in this tutorial environment, we're not going to talk a lot about IDEs or about text editors, but the ones you're going to use in the real world. Often, when you get into a role, you'll find it's easiest to work in the same IDEs or the same text editors that your coworkers are working in. So, oh, everybody's using Visual Studio. I'll work in Visual Studio. Oh, or if you're a bit contrary, you say, oh, I'm going to work a VS Code. Um, um, yeah, but go ahead, give one a try. It can be as simple as using like Notepad++. I think is one of the more stripped down ones. Um, but yeah, give one a try. Don't worry if it feels weird, but I'd probably start out with something that's a little bit less featured, you know? So something that yeah, so something more on the Atom side or something more on the Sublime Text instead of VS Code, just because VS Code has a lot, and you're like, oh, I'm not using this yet. I'm not using this. Yeah, VS Code. I know everybody's saying VS Code is really good. I don't disagree. I use it a lot, but yeah, when you're brand new, there's all this like, oh, what's this, and oh, what's this, and like for newbies, like I like to say, oh, let's get used to something that's a little bit streamlined. Okay, now that you're chill, boom, let's dump you into VS Code where you have 100,000 exciting different options. Oh, um, uh, Yuvaraj is asking, hey, what's Bootstrap and how does it help in CSS? Cool. Bootstrap is a library. So it's a system of pre-built modules or pre-built variables for HTML and CSS, where it's sort of already coded up a lot of different things you might want to use. And then you can just use what it's done. It's helpful in CSS and it's helpful in web development overall, because it can speed things up a little bit once you're comfortable using libraries. You don't have to use it, but a lot of people do use it and find it's really useful. We're not going to be looking at Bootstrap in this course, but there's a ton of people who have a lot of really, really good Bootstrap courses out there. So if you're like, hey, what's Bootstrap? It's like, cool. What are the rules? If you don't know something, ask someone, which you've done, and I've said, "Oh, hey, it's a library for HTML and CSS." And then your next two steps are to sort of look it up and look up why might I want to use this, and then play with it, get weird, and say, "Oh, is this valuable for me?" August, did I have a question from you that I've missed? Oh, and August, were you asking which one is better, Flexbox or Grid? Woo, woof. It's a hard question. So if that had been the question you were asking, it's really a philosophical approach. Some people love grid and some people love Flexbox. It's about what your team is using and about what you're using as well. Okay. So a lot of people are coming back and saying, "Hey, I'm a newbie and I'm using VS Code." And I love it. You know what? Go ahead and try VS Code then, Linda. I'm trying to give you something stripped down and be like, "Oh, well, try this thing with fewer options. It feels less scary." And y'all like, "No, VS Code." Okay, try VS Code. I've been overruled and I respect it. Fabulous. Do you know what? We have absolutely hustled through this. We've got about 15 minutes early. How about, oh gosh, your homework, homework, homework. I keep trying to get off this stream. I'm about to say call. It's a very weird call. Keep trying to get off the stream without giving you homework. Of course, this is self-paced. You don't have to go at a specific speed. But if you can finish the end of visual design before our next course, so we can review it, it's gonna make things easier. Yeah. So go ahead and try to finish the end of visual design section by the time we do the next course, and we'll go ahead and finish that. If you don't get through all of that, it's chill. It's just me. Oh, but the most important homework, the strictest homework, the scariest homework is you did a lot of work with positioning today, and positioning's weird and positioning's stressful. So I'm going to lovingly and kindly and gently demand that you spend the rest of your day or the rest of your evening or the rest of whatever's going on in the time you're in with as little stress as possible in your day, right? Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and let all of you go. I'll see you in the forum and if you're available, no pressure. I'll see you actually about an hour from now, tomorrow for Antonio Roberts. I'm going to let you go and thank you all so much. You all are an absolute delight to learn alongside. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, loves.